This fall and winter, we've been grappling with the idea of barefoot boots and how good of an idea they even are. With only 11 millimeters of stack height, the Freet Barefoot Tundra pushes that idea to the max, offering a boot advertised as being meant for the winter, but with as little as possible between your feet and the cold ground outside. We've tried it out on various terrain, including streams, mud, and snow, pushing it to its limits, so come along as we continue to frame our thinking about minimalist winter footwear and see how the Freet Tundra hang with the competition. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Sons of Sever YouTube channel, where there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. My name is Eric, and today we are talking to you about the Freet Tundra, which is a barefoot boot that we've been pretty excited to review for all of you. This fall and winter, we've talked about a lot of different barefoot boots. We've reviewed boots from Lems, Xero Shoes, Feelgrounds. We're gonna have one from Barefoot coming up next weekend, but today we're talking about Freet. And this is a boot that we've been excited about because it is one of the more minimal boots that we've gotten our hands on. With only 11 millimeters of stack height, there's very little between you and the elements outside. So we've been excited to give you our thoughts about how it does. Chris and I are gonna ping pong back and forth, telling you our likes and our dislikes about the boot. And as always, there are timestamps down in the description. So if you wanna go jump around, you can go and check those out there. Before sending it over to Chris, I did want to tell you about the specs of the shoe so that you know what you're looking at. This retails for $165 US, and it only weighs 11.8 ounces, so very, very light. There's 11 millimeters of stack height, as mentioned before, and it is made out of a microfiber, so just a nice faux leather. And it does have a water-resistant lining that you can see in there, so it's not waterproof, water resistant. We'll let you know what we think about that later on, but that's it for the specs of the shoe. I'm gonna send it over to Chris now so that he can talk about the things that he likes about it.
Kicking off my likes of the Freet Tundra, the first thing that I want to mention is how ridiculously light and flexible this thing is. So it has about an 11 millimeter stack height total if you include the lugs in that calculation, making it one of the thinner boots that we've worked with so far this season. With that thinness and that extreme flexibility, it is also way lighter than the other boots that we've worked with, which are light in their own right. The Boulder Grip, just as an example, from Lems is 14.1 ounces. This shoe that I have here, which is the size 43 Tundra, is 11.8 ounces. The extreme lightweight and the flexibility of this thing gives it a really nice barefoot feel. The next thing I want to talk about with my likes is gonna be the sole. It's actually surprisingly grippy. I've used these things in a lot of different situations, whether it's wet and slippery from rain or snowy, slushy, icy. These things have held up great on gravel. I haven't experienced any slipping issues with the Freet Tundra. The last thing I'll mention is going to be how rugged these things are. When you handle them, they feel so light, thin, and flexible that you think they may fall apart with too much use, but I've worn these to work as a delivery driver for the last 4 or 5 weeks straight, and I am seeing no signs of delamination of the sole. I don't have any wear through the faux leather. The bottom of the boot is holding up fantastic as well. There are a couple of lugs that are starting to get a little bit smooth, but none of them are significantly worn down. So it's passing the durability test for me so far, for sure. With my likes out of the way, I'm now gonna pass things back over to Eric. He is gonna talk to you about what he likes about the Freet Tundra.
All right, so my turn to talk about the things that I like about the boot. And I think the biggest thing that I like about it is those barefoot qualities that it has. If you have worn a Xero Prio or a Splay Freestyle, then this will give you a very familiar feeling. If you like to put your foot into a shoe and have as little between you and the ground as possible, to have as much flex as possible, for it to feel like it's not even there, then this is a boot for you, with some reservations that we will let you know about in our dislikes, obviously. But I really do like how nimble this thing is. It was fun to take it out on the trail and to feel so unburdened by its weight and its build. It's very well thought out as far as its barefoot characteristics go. But again, that will have its limitations for us. I also have had a pretty good experience with the traction on this thing. It has this really deep and aggressive lug pattern that did really well for me as I took it in the snow. So I took it on this relatively short, it was like 2 or 3 miles with some pretty steep hills thrown in there, but it was mostly compacted snow. I did take it off trail into a little bit of loose powder, and I felt pretty stable that entire time. Obviously I was slipping around just a little bit because it's snow, but I think that it performed pretty admirably for the conditions that I was in. I think that the water resistance on it actually does a fairly decent job as well. We were kind of put off by the fact that it isn't waterproof. I feel like a boot that's called the Tundra, that's marketed for winter wear, should be waterproof, but in my hike in the snow, it did not fail me. My feet stayed perfectly dry, even though I was going through the snow. Now, it wasn't very wet snow, and obviously this does have its limitations that Chris will talk about with his experience in the water, but I think that the water resistance on it does a fairly decent job. Alright, it's gonna be time to start talking about our dislikes of the boot, but before I send it back over to Chris, I wanted to mention some of the affiliates that we have going on with this channel now. If you made it here to this channel, there's a very good chance that that's because you were researching barefoot shoes, and we have a ton of different brands that you can go and check out down in the description. So we've got Lems, Xero Shoes, Vibram, Peluva, Barefoot, and I might be missing some, make sure you go check, but our newest one that we're super excited about is Feelgrounds. So we put out a review the other day, and you can get to that by clicking here, on the Patrol Winter, which is a boot that we really like. This thing is crazy warm, so it's an awesome winter boot that's very thin and very flexible, so you can continue your barefoot journey throughout the winter but keep your feet very warm by wearing this guy. Go and use our affiliate link to check out Feelgrounds. They make awesome barefoot shoes that look normal. I think that's kind of where they come into the space. They'd be a great replacement for Vans. Their shoes look really nice. So check out Feelgrounds. The perfect companion on your barefoot journey and letting your toes splay out as much as possible is a good pair of toe socks. And we really love the brand Creepers. So this is one of their limited edition socks. I haven't even checked actually on the website to see if these are still available or not. They might not be, but this was the limited edition Sunrise sock, and I'm a sucker for 80s stripes. I think they're cool, so I really like these socks. So we did a 7-brand comparison of toe socks, and you can find that review here. Creepers was the brand that came out on top of that batch. We really love the way that they feel. They're a merino wool blend that's really nice on your feet. They're awesome for casual wear as well as performance wear. We like them hiking and running too. And now back over to Chris so that he can talk about his dislikes of the boot.
Talking about my dislikes of the Freet Tundra, I've got some little ones and then I have a really big major dislike of this boot. Starting with the little ones, a personal one, I don't like hook eyelets. I find that it makes it difficult to set up a boot to slip on and off, and if you've watched other boot reviews that we have, you know how important it is to me to be able to slip a boot on and off at will, because it makes it easy for me to choose that boot because it'll go on my foot so quick and easy. Then it gets more wear and I get more experience with it. Again, personally don't like the hook eyelets, but they are tight, so they hug the lace real nice and snug, and that made it pretty easy to set these things up to slip on and off. Now, when it comes to that slipping on and off, there is a feature that we're missing that would make it even easier, and that is the lack of a heel loop. We've seen kind of the whole spectrum of heel loops this fall winter with the different boots that we've worked with. We've got some heel loops that work absolutely perfect and function fantastic. We've got some that were put a little too low on the boots and might as well have not been there at all because they were functionally useless. And then we've had a couple where that heel loop was completely deleted. In my opinion, a boot that is meant for outdoorsy stuff and hiking is probably gonna need a heel loop. Again, kind of a little nitpicky feature, but this next thing is a major feature that not only every hiking boot should have, but just every boot that exists in general. I think all boots should have complete full-on waterproofing, especially if the boot is made for outdoorsy stuff. Now, this was kind of my mistake in not double checking my research, but I took this boot with a couple other Barefoot boots on a specific hike that ended with a waterfall so that I could test the waterproofing of all of those boots at the same time. This was the first one to go into the water, and I regretted it almost instantly. As I got out of the water with now soaked socks, I whipped out my phone, got on the Freet website, and noticed that in the description it mentions that this boot is not waterproof, it is water resistant. Now, to the credit of the boot, it does do well in water resistant situations. So when I'm at work and it's raining, or it's been raining so it's wet on the ground, or even if it's snowing or I'm trudging through snow and ice, this thing doesn't allow that stuff to get into it. But if you're standing in a consistent flow of water, trying to cross a stream or something on a hike, you're not gonna wanna do that in this guy. I had to change my socks so that I could test the other boots without thinking water was coming into my shoe. The last thing I'll say about this that I don't like, and you will glean this from other thin boots that we've reviewed so far as well, it's just not enough stack height for a hardcore technical hiking boot. For Eric and I, the sweet spot of a hiking boot is somewhere closer to 15 millimeters. I'm sure Eric is gonna bring this up in his dislikes as well, so spoiler alert, I won't harp on it too long, but in my opinion, a future Tundra should be completely waterproof, have a heel loop, and maybe add 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters of stack height, and that's gonna be a really nice offering from Freet. Now I'm gonna pass things over to Eric. He's gonna talk to you about what he doesn't like about the Freet Tundra.
Okay, my turn to talk about my dislikes with the Freet Tundra. The first one that I'll go ahead and just get out of the way is always our most controversial as people are researching Barefoot shoes, and that is for something that's marketed as a rugged hiking boot, especially a winter hiking boot, we just don't think this has enough stack height underneath it to give you the protection that your feet need for those conditions. Like I said, I did take it out in the snow today, but it was for a short hike and it was in dry snow. If it was a longer hike and if it was in wetter conditions and more technical too, if there was a lot more elevation gain and there was a lot more rocks and roots and things, then this would not be my choice. I just don't think my feet would be happy at the end of a hike like that wearing these. Now maybe your feet are super adjusted to being barefoot, and then these will do just fine for you. But for those of us that aren't that far in the journey, I suppose, which, I mean, I've been wearing barefoot shoes for 5 years or so. Chris and I wore Vibrams all summer long. This still just isn't enough for me. At one point on my hike today, I transitioned from walking on snow to rocks, and I hit my heel super hard on a rock, and it hurt. So you can definitely feel everything through these. I think you need to be cautious with how difficult of a hike you want to take these on. But if you're picking them up just because you want to continue your barefoot journey throughout the winter and you're just going to wear them casually, I think that they would do an awesome job for you. The next thing is the look of them. They're not my favorite. They're not a bad looking boot by any means, but if I was just going to pick a barefoot winter boot off of looks, this wouldn't be my first choice. I really like the way that the Boulder boots look. Again, that's kind of subjective. That's just a me thing. Maybe you really like this one, and that's great. I think it is a nice looking boot. I just think there's others that I would pick before it. The microfiber material, while I like that it doesn't require a ton of upkeep, when I first pulled this out of the box, it came off to me as a little bit cheap because it's very squeaky. So definitely not my favorite. You won't be doing any sneaking around in this thing because of that squeak that you can hear coming off of it. And the last thing that I'll say is that I wish that the ankle went up a little bit higher on this one. So it does go higher on a lot of our other models, and today while I was walking around in the snow, I was getting quite a bit of snow over and into the boot. And part of that was because my pants were rolled up for filming so you could all see the boot more. And I could have prevented some of it by unrolling my cuff and, you know, putting it over, but It would be nice if that ankle went a little bit higher. I did find it to be just a little bit uncomfortable while I was moving around where it was hitting me on my Achilles. So an improved ankle would be very welcome too. But overall, this is a very fun boot. Again, I love how light and how barefoot and how nimble it feels when you have it on. It is fun to take out on the trails, but it definitely has its limitations. So with that, I'm gonna send it back over to Chris to give his final opinion and to close out the video for us.
Wrapping things up, I wanted to give you my final opinion of the Freet Tundra. I actually really like it a lot. I think it has some really good DNA. We're excited to test other Freet shoes that we should be getting after this review comes out. I think there's a lot of promise with this. And if you're looking for a really lightweight boot, and you're not planning on getting it soaking wet, I think this would be a fantastic option for you. Also, if you like the way it looks, which I do, I definitely think it has a really cool style to it, then it's got fantastic barefoot features that would definitely make it for you. Folks, if you liked this video, we would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. As always, there's links down in the description to all of the fantastic outdoor gear businesses that we love to partner with. Make sure to go follow along with us on Instagram if you want the most up-to-date videos and content on the current things that we are working with on the channel. Strava is also a fantastic place to follow along with us in order to see our workouts and our adventures, our hikes, where we're going, how long we're going, and what gear we're using during those adventures. We've started to build quite the fantastic online outdoorsy community there on Strava. We're glad you're here. We appreciate your view, and as always, we will catch you in the mountains.